When Rav Shmuel Molover, Zechat Tzadik Livracha, the Rav of Bialystok, passed away, so there was discussion as to who would be his Memale Makom, who would fill his shoes as the Rav of the city. There were those Rabbanim who suggested that Rav Meir Simcha end up becoming the next Rav. And the reason they suggested was because of the fact Rav Meir Simcha was a product of the city. He was born in Bialystok, and he would know the people. For some reason, that suggestion was rejected. When asked about what he thought about the development, Rav Meir Simcha answered as follows. He said, when it came to the Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf, which we read about in our parsha, the greatest sin that Bnei Yisrael took part in together as a nation, the instigators of this sin were the Erev Rav. The Erev Rav were the group of people who came along with Bnei Yisrael when they left Mitzrayim, and they created a whole course of mischief throughout the time Bnei Yisrael was in the Midbar. And this Erev Rav came to Aaron and said, Kumase lanu Elokim, make for us a God, give us a leader, because Moshe is gone. And so Rav Meir Simcha says, why did they ask Aaron to make an egel? Why didn't they ask Aaron to simply be their new Moshe? If Moshe was gone and they lost their connection with the divine, then why not ask Aaron, Moshe's brother, to fill his shoes? Why did they end up asking for an egel, for a golden calf, to worship an idol? And so Rav Shmuel Molover says that human nature is that we always think that there is something better that comes from outside, from somewhere else. And therefore, we want something fresh, something new, as opposed to recognizing and realizing what we have right in front of us. And so he explained this about why he was rejected as being the Rav of the city. But in truth, the lesson applies to us on so many different levels in our own personal lives. How many times do we find ourselves seeking happiness from an outside source? Finding some way to make ourselves feel better by tapping into something that is not present. How many times do we look at someone else's relationship and say, oh, there is something, that's something that I want to strive for, as opposed to looking at the uniqueness and the specialness of the relationships that we have and saying, let me try to make the best out of what it is that I am engaged in already. And so the lesson of Rav Meir Simcha was one that would have benefited the generation of the Midbar, the generation that created the Chet HaEgel, and that instead of seeking from the outside, we would have sought from the inside, and ultimately the course of Jewish history would have changed. While we don't have that opportunity, we do have the opportunity to make a change in our own lives, to try to seek and to soothe internally, as opposed to looking to other places and to other external stimuli in order to bring us comfort and to make us have or feel a sense of wholesomeness and a sense of happiness. May we be zoche to live life b'simcha, remembering this lesson of Rav Meir Simcha. Thank you for listening and have a good Shabbos.